Wait, shit, did we even go over that? The essential ask from, they want me to be a mole. Did we even, I don't think we talked about that yet. We talked about that. That's like, oops. That's like the main thing is they
straight up told you on this chat that they want you to be a mole.
Yeah, sorry. That was a big one. And it was like day 2 of.
Do you have that?
Yeah.
Let's look at that.
Well, yeah, maybe I am. Maybe I am.
Yeah.
So this is the very first message they ever sent, which was the,
okay.
Attention to you, Max Lebow. Urgent to see that there's on Havmeyer in South Fifth Street. It's a pale, frail bird. I mean, just, we could get lost in their poetry all day, but victory for the tiger. This is the day 1 of messaging.
Right.
So let me just scroll through.
Yeah, where's the one where they straight up say, we want you to be a mole?
Yeah. Sorry, it might take me a second.
Yeah. And how long did it take before they actually said that?
I think it was the second day that we spoke.
The second day?
So now we're in, second day. This is, does it say what day it is? No. 4:06. Yeah, so, but this is the second day of us talking, which I think is maybe a week. Yeah, they say we reach out, our colleague was thorough. So this is the second day of them talking.
There are cameras and microphones everywhere. This is the way we're able to observe and create a baseline. You've always wondered, Max. We know you as well as anyone. Please do not be silent.
Yeah, they're like, we've seen you naked. They say that a few times too, which is like, cool, bro. Not my response at the time. My response at the time was horror.
Right.
Sorry.
Okay, so essentially, why do they want you to be a mole? Like they wanted you to get in. Like, what made them?
Here, boom, here we go. This is the page.
You are an actor. Our agent has contacts in your government in which it will be of use for you to meet with as a mole. This is much too difficult to explain in typing with a translation. Our agent can give you more complete diametrics and also find comfort in working with one another. There is a war going on. Who it is controls 5G, controls the course of consciousness. Before we can find our position to counteract this, we must understand its implementation. Wow. So, okay, so they have somebody who's in the government, who's like a spy working in the U.S. government, and they want you to make a connection with this person.
Allegedly, yeah. So they say
that's like, I mean, that's jumping right to the point. Day 2.
Yeah.
I mean, there's obviously some deep psychological thing going on here, and they know what the fuck they're doing, but it's just like.
Well, to your point, it begs a lot of questions. Because are they just diving in and being straight up with me about what they want, so that I have some idea? That's a distinct possibility. And they mentioned here like you're an actor, but they go on at different days when they talk about the mole thing. They also call it a communications expert,
right?
Where they give reasons for it. They're like, you're an actor, but like you're not like nobody knows who you are. So like acting skills, but not like wouldn't stand out in a crowd. They're like, we're Chinese people, and I assume their connect in the government is Chinese too, and so they said they're somewhat distrusted, but you as like a white American,
right,
Jew maybe even, would be more trusted in these high-ranking environments if I had some kind of like falsified certification or something. I don't know. I used to sell like pounds of weed in college, and so I had some run-ins with the police and like talked my way out of it, which they mention, and and they knew about that, and they're like, you've been in high pressure situations and you can kind of handle yourself. Essentially what they said was that they came to America, they were doing all this recon about the power structures in America, and they found that there's, and this is all stuff they said, I can dig it up if we want, but there's 3 pillars of power. It's like politics, maybe tech, and media, I think. And within media, if you recall that conversation I had in a car with my dad in, I think, 2015, we were driving by Harvey Weinstein's house. He lived the town over in Southport, Connecticut, and we were driving by his house, and
you knew exactly where he lived?
Well, yeah, because it was like in that area. He always came to the diner that we. I mean, this was before everything came out publicly. We also don't know him, so we didn't know the whole Harvey Weinstein thing at the time. But he would come into like our diner, and he was like a disgusting slob. He'd be like covered in like shit, and like he had an iPad that looked like it belonged to like a 4-year-old. It had like crusty
bacon grease all over it.
He was like a disgusting human being in many ways. Yeah, probably. Oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah.
It's the water of life, Steve.
That's what he told all his victims, I'm sure. So yeah, we were driving by his house one day, and it's like this beautiful, like there's like sculptures in like this huge, like almost like Versailles, like this huge lead up to his house with these sculptures, and it's on like this cliff in Southport, like overlooking the Long Island Sound.
Yeah.
And we were driving by, and my dad was like, "Oh, that's Harvey Weinstein's house. Like, what a nice house. Like, you know, maybe I should get into film," or something casual and offhand. And not only is it crazy that G like cited that specifically.
Sorry to interrupt, but what's that famous Joe Rogan joke? Have you seen his stand up where he's talking about Harvey Weinstein, and or he's talking about like basically child abuse and shit in Hollywood? He's like, if it's your daughter, it's a terrible fucking thing. But if it's your kid, dropping him off at Harvey Weinstein's house and saying, "Son, you're gonna be Batman."
I mean, I know a lot of actors who've said straight up, they're like, "I would have." Like people that didn't, they're like, people are very willing to do what it takes.
They know what's going on.
And to the point too, if everyone has their weakness, like this is mine, I want to be fucking Neo. And for some people, they're like, I want to be a movie star, so I'll do
whatever it takes.
Yeah. But so we had that one conversation. G apparently heard it. So essentially they were doing this recon, 3 pillars of power. One is media. Harvey Weinstein was at the top of that at one point in that time. And because we live in the area, or because my dad like vaguely worked in media or something, he popped up as like a potential, I think they said like a potential, someone who could help them, I guess, just vaguely in this recon. And then because of that conversation by his house where we mentioned his name, they thought that G thought that we were somehow connected to Harvey Weinstein.
Wow.
And so they started looking at my dad, and then they found his name on his signature on as a guarantor on my apartment where I lived on South 5th and Havemeyer Street. And so they started looking at me, and then they saw, like you said, this guy's been to Russia, this guy's been to
Cuba thing doesn't hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, like communist sympathies maybe. So that's, that's kind of how they explain how they found me, and that kind of feeds into this idea of like why they think I could be a good mole. And that, at that point in my life, I was maybe connected to powerful people or whatever. And certainly when I got to LA, I was connected to powerful people. And it's easier to hack me than someone with Pegasus or someone with Orion, someone who is whatever, someone who's ready to get hacked, as opposed to me. I was a sitting duck. So yeah, this is the whole mole. I can't believe we didn't mention that from the beginning, because that's
crazy. All right. So fast forward to, that's very interesting backstory, by the way. I'm glad we've been back to that.
Yeah.
But before this, we were at the beginning of the pandemic. You're working for Brian in LA,
right? And
they sent you on this mission to go get a COVID test and ask the nurse a bunch of questions about 5G.
Yeah, and it seemed superfluous to me at the time, and I think I might have been right about that. I think because at the end of I don't want to go back and find it, but at the end of that first day of conversation, they were like, "Yeah, sure, like you can go meet this agent, or you can go." Get a COVID test and ask these questions. And I was like, so what do I do now? And they're like, just stay close to Brian. And I forget exactly how they put it. It was beautiful and horrifying. There was something like, and see how you can rise through the ranks or something.
Right.
And then 2 days later, I get a call to go work at the COVID testing company doing comms. And G is like, yeah, we knew that was going to happen. That's why we talked a couple days after that. Mm-hmm. And they're like, we work in your favor at all times. So I don't know if they were saying they were hacking Brian or these other people or whatever, or if it was a good guess on their part. But certainly after 6 months of not talking, really good timing. Because then when that job started, they wanted me to get close to all these famous, powerful people and have specific conversations with them with my phone out, get close to the administrators at the COVID testing sites, have a specific conversation with the people getting tested. They wanted me to figure out where the tests went after, at the end of the day, there's a big bucket and they took it somewhere. They wanted me to figure out where the tests went. They at one point asked me to get the names of the officers who took the tests from the site to the lab. So they wanted me to like get. At that point, I thought, oh yeah, I guess it is probably valuable information to the Chinese or to these dissidents or whatever, like how COVID is affecting us and how we're reacting to it and how the COVID testing sites are working and all that. And this marks the period of like, something is obviously wrong here. Something is bad that's happening here, but I feel way in over my head because.
So did you do it?
So this is, there were things that I did and things that I didn't do. And because of the FBI investigation, the fact that I'm sitting here right now, the things that I did were not technically illegal, but we're definitely in like maybe a moral gray area because
So this, for people listening, by the way, is like, you're in the middle of it still. This is not over.
This is like the crux, really.
Right.
Yeah. The LA time, because now I'm in the world doing something for them. Like it was fun to research all this stuff and be like, wow, there's this final war going on and who's Lieber and what's all this stuff. But like this is, and it's interesting at that point too, but this is where I'm like going out into the world and like doing what they tell me to do, you know, to an extent. There was a line where I was like, names of officers seems sketchy and I'm not going to do that.
And when you go there and they say, turn your microphone on, what does that mean?
Or just have my phone out.
Just leave your phone out and they'll do the rest.
That's enough for them. They're literally just like, go to the administrator, ask them, you know, certain questions about how the tests are disseminated, make it seem like, you know, they said, you're the charming American prince. You know, they're buffing my ego, giving me this confidence to be like, yeah, you can go have a conversation with someone in a completely unsuspecting way, but get something out of them. And so, yeah, they wanted me to talk to these people, give them like character evaluations of them and ask them certain questions with my phone out so that they could listen. But at this point, I started kind of clocking like what seemed like maybe something they could find on the internet or something that was harmless versus something that was sensitive and harmful. And so I would like, for example, at a certain point I started working on the testing site, like in PPE. So I would like have one conversation with somebody that worked at the testing site that seemed like, I'd be like, oh, you ever heard of this guy, Dr. Charles Lieber? Or something like that, or whatever. Or like, oh, what is that? What is that panel over there? And they'd be like, oh, I don't know. And I was like, oh, you know what? I think I heard it's like 5G, like something like that. And then when it started to get a little bit more serious.
Did they ever give you like a specific list of things to say, or you just you're coming up with the stuff on your own?
No, there's like, if we go back to I'll see if I can dig it up, but yeah, they were essentially like, well, one of the things they wanted me to do is do character evaluations. So they're like, go talk to the administrator and come back and just like tell us what kind of guy he is. Like, and so that to me, you know, I feel thinking about that stuff now, I certainly feel guilty. And I don't want to be like, oh, I was a victim, but like, I certainly feel like it was kind of a moral gray area. But I would like explain the guy, not like his name, not where he's from, not anything like that. But I'd be like, you know, he's a jolly man. He seems educated in his own right. Probably not a free thinker. He probably has a few degrees. You know, he's got a red face, and so maybe his altruism is self-sacrificing. Maybe he spends all day being of service to other people, but then goes home and drinks because, you know, it's his altruism. You know, like stuff like that. Like, just trying to. And so that kind of thing, they would ask for character evaluations, and then they would be like, you know, find out what people know about the biology of the tests. I guess for some reason it was valuable to them, or they were saying it was for them to know like what the nurses knew or what the administrators knew about the biology of the test. Because they said there had to be certain nanobiology present in the tests in order for a vaccine to be promulgated, is I think even a direct quote.
One of the things they did to you, which I don't know what kind of effect this has on the human mind, but like they basically told you they can access every single piece of technology around you in your house, in your apartment building. They can see you, hear you, smell you anywhere you fucking go. Yeah. How did they explain that to you?
Well, Internet of Things, IoT, which was something, I mean, it sounds like a silly name. It doesn't sound, but then it's like an abbreviation, IoT, Internet of Things. And it's this idea that I don't think is like 100%, well, not that it's not possible, but let's say, for example, you have like a landline. The landline isn't directly connected to the Internet of Things. It has to be like Bluetooth enabled or on Wi-Fi or something like that. But the idea is that they always would compare it to the way things are in China now, specifically Wuhan, which we'll get to that. And how all of that enables like a social credit system, and that it just makes oversight like super simple, and AI is kind of processing all the information. So let's say you like litter on the street in some Chinese town, like you're getting like completely automated, but you're getting like a mark against your, and I'm not an expert in this, but I believe generally that's how it works, that if you do something that the government doesn't like, you lose some right.
Right. Full on, fully surveilled police state they live in. Like cameras everywhere. They have like AI monitoring systems that track your actual gait, like the cadence that you walk in, that can identify you.
Horrifying. So yeah, even if you're wearing a mask, they can still tell.
And then that ties in with their centralized currency. So like if you do get in trouble or your social credit score goes down enough, they could basically turn off your money.
Yeah.
So you can't do anything, can't move, go anywhere, can't buy gas, can't eat.
Yeah.
Like that's very terrifying.
Bleak, yeah, Orwellian. And that's what they were saying was coming here, essentially through IoT, through 5G. That's like the system that will enable the ability, because I guess 5G is the bandwidth. And again, I'm not an expert, but it functions at such a high rate that it's able to enable AI processing everything that's coming from cameras, microphones, social media presence, everything to kind of like create a profile on you, and that you need 5G, I guess. And this is something we can look up or someone will comment.
So 5G is essentially, with the bandwidth of it, it's fast enough to process multiple signals at once and somehow analyze it, integrate it with AI in real time.
Yeah, and again, we need a fact check, but
Steve,
I think before all these towers and stuff started popping up, like when you walk around New York City now, at any given moment, you can look around and you will see at least 3 or 4 of these panels.
What is this? So this is Google AI. For what it's worth, Google AI says that 5G technology is totally safe.
Yeah, we're friends.
Major advancement in wireless communication that improves the Internet of Things by enabling faster data transfer and more reliable communication. 5G's low latency and high-speed connectivity are making
IoT. That's the
IoT applications more effective and adaptable. Okay,
so that's integrated supply
chains, remote vehicle maintenance, navigate. That's the crazy thing, dude. Like I didn't even realize when you were explaining on your podcast, like the Internet of Things, that includes any car that's like built after 1999, essentially, right?
Yeah.
That has like a radio or any kind of like wireless connectivity to it, which goes back pretty far. It's not just like Tesla cars. They're pretty much every car. And then your Samsung TV, if you have any kind of smart TV, they can access that because they have voice activated features on them, baby monitors. And there's videos. I've seen the videos of like baby monitors in like kids' bedrooms where a hacker will like go into the baby monitor and start talking to them.
So fucked up.
It's everywhere, dude.
Yeah. So, and that's just the beginning too. I mean, we're really at the beginning stages. Like I think honestly, like sometimes it'll say 5G on my phone and I won't be able to send a text message. So I think it might be maybe advertising. Essentially, it's this idea like, look, we have 5G on our phone, but I don't know to what extent it's actually like fully enabled yet, because this implies that it actually works. And sometimes it says 5G on my phone, but there's nothing. But
so did you have any sort of confidence that they explained to you the Internet of Things and they have access to everything? Do you think they actually had access to your phone microphone, your phone camera, 100%. Your camera roll, all this stuff?
Yeah, because they cited very specific. For example, there's a video in my phone where I thought I was like making a documentary at the time, and I was wearing a hat that I got in Cuba with like the red star on it, and I was like ranting about like the state of the world and my dissatisfaction, however G put it. And I've never shared that with anyone. It was kind of embarrassing. So I wasn't like texting it to my friends. Like it was like a ridiculous ramble of just like me in my backyard recording myself. And they cite that video specifically and things that I said. And like I said, like I would put my phone every day. I'd go to therapy. I'd put my phone on the couch. And then later that day, they would message me saying, you talked about XYZ in therapy. Tell us more about that. Like verbatim stuff, like things that I know 100% never left the walls of my therapist's office for good reason.
And this is all an Instagram Messenger?
Yeah, that's the. In the beginning, I was like, I said something about that. I was like, I'm sure you know that like there are certain agencies or whatever I said
Right.
that can like, and they laughed it off. They said essentially like half of Instagram accounts are fake, and it's a very easy place to come and go because like I said, at one point I reported them to Instagram, and they don't like open an investigation. If everybody who sent Instagram a message saying like I'm being hacked, like whatever, they just block it and they like close that person's account.
Yeah.
There's not like an investigation going into it. So it's actually. They did say we could talk on Discord at one point, but I'm not a gamer or like a tech person, so I didn't have Discord.
I hate Discord.
Why? I don't know anything about it.
It's just complicated.
Oh, okay.
It's just too much work.
Yeah, so I stood no chance on Discord. So Instagram, but I guess, I guess they're right. They came and went very easily. Every time we would have a conversation, they would come from a new account with the Chinese name, 0 followers, 0 following, 0 posts, pop up, send me some messages, and then it would disappear. Mm-hmm. But strangely, actually, after some time, weeks or months even, the account would pop back up, but sometimes it would pop back up with a different name. So for example, like one of them is Ji, I think that's where I originally got their name, like I'll butcher the last name, but some Chinese last name.
Yeah.
And then that account went away. And then like months later, it showed back up, but the name was now one of the guys on my show, Glenn, who was involved in this from the very beginning. He worked at a restaurant in New York. I forget what it's called. It was called like Steakhouse. And the new name on the account that I had originally had the conversation with was now Glenn from Steakhouse. So again, in the column of like they're shifting these pieces around to make it look like, oh, I was just having a conversation with my friend Glenn. This wasn't a hacker, you know? But I don't know why it pops back up after some months too. I'm glad because it gave me the ability to record the stuff that I had missed and take the screenshots that I'd missed before. But
yeah, so it's weird that they knew about the screenshots and they had access to your phone. They didn't go in and like I'm assuming they would have had access or the ability to delete the screenshots on your phone if they wanted to.
Yeah, there was a early on I was talking to Glenn and he was like. If they're in your, he brought that up. He's like, if they're in your phone, like, wouldn't they not be okay with it? But they said to me, and again, this raises some questions. They're like, we know that you're talking to your friend about this. We know you're writing a screenplay. We know you have the screenshots, but we support, like, you're like a creative person and we support this, which is strange, but also kind of begs the question, which might, you know, there's more stuff comes out later about why this might be, but that, you know, why do they want me to tell people what they're saying? Like, what is it that they're saying that is, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it helps maybe from this point. I wasn't necessarily doing this at the time, but from this point in the story, even to consider what they're saying to me that's true and what might not be true, because then let's say I then believe everything, then I'm gonna say everything that they told me in this story in the screenplay as though it's truth, and that might lead people to believe that because they trust their character, like G's character, that they would know what they're talking about, that whatever they're saying is true. Is this, I don't know, this is a little convoluted.
It makes sense.
It essentially would lead me to spread misinformation.
Yes.
Which is like, you know, a very real campaign that internationally is going back and forth trying to, what were we talking about? Hypernormalization?
Yeah. Hypernormalization, yeah.
Nobody knows what's real anymore. And it's because people are saying everything everywhere all the time that you just don't know, you know, what to believe. So
yeah.
Could this be a tool of that?
When they first engaged with you, they started talking about 5G.
Yeah.
And Huawei.
Yeah, that was, I think one of the first messages was the Huawei incident wasn't isolated and we have our acknowledgements, is what they said. I've read these messages so many times.
And when they're talking about the Huawei incident, they're talking about like, there was something that came out where like the FBI, are you talking about when the FBI like acknowledged that there was like, we were buying Huawei equipment and installing it on like phone towers and cell towers and that were near like nuclear bases that were in somewhere in like the Midwest, the US.
Oh, I don't know about that because that, I mean, that could have happened. I think what they were referring to was the CFO got arrested. Her name is Meng Wanzhou, and I think she's the daughter of the CEO.
Oh, right.
She was arrested, and then she was being held in Canada, and we were trying to extradite her. And the charge was brought. It was like conspiracy to defraud multiple international institutions, which I don't really know what that means. And I think that's the point. It's vague. And I think she inevitably just got sent back in an exchange, maybe for a couple of our people that they had.
Yeah, Steve, can you find that story where the CEOs of Huawei's daughter was arrested, and she was arrested in Canada, and the U.S. was trying to extradite her?
Yeah, because so that's why it was interesting what you were just saying, because I think the gist, at least from the hacker's perspective, and I think also just from like a business perspective, is that 5G is I mean, you know, we were just looking at the panels right outside. They're everywhere, all over the world.
Yeah.
And conspiracy aside, it's like the new technology. It's like the iPhone was just invented, and who's ever enabling that technology is going to have a lot of power and make a lot of money.
Yeah, and this is from, when was this? This is from April 14th, 2019. Huawei's founder says his daughter hasn't faced hardship and her arrest will make her stronger.
Yeah, so this I think was
Scroll down
a little bit after she got arrested, because they sent the message in March.
Founder and CEO of the Chinese tech giant Huawei said he believes the arrest of his daughter, Huawei CEO Meng Wanzhou, will make her stronger since she has faced very little hardship in her life. Give her some character.
Yeah, well, he's honest in that regard, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, what G would say, my hacker, that's what I come to call them, is well, I guess also from a grounded perspective too, is that if Huawei is enabling the 5G towers in America or in other countries, that means that essentially the Chinese government is going to have access to the information that flows through that, which is everything.
Yep.
And that does not, that rubs our government the wrong way.
There was a story that came out, I think it was last year, like late last year, where I guess the FBI was investigating how I think it was Verizon. I believe it was Verizon. I could be wrong. It was either Verizon or AT&T was contracting out all of their work they were basically like picking the lowest bids to build all these cell towers, I guess, that were all over the country. And a lot of them were in like Montana area, where all of our ICBM like launch sites are, our nuclear launch sites, where we have all those like Minutemen missiles, you know?
Yeah.
Which are like in range of that nuclear facility. So if there's Huawei, and these were like all Huawei equipment there. So like the FBI had to investigate it and figure out how to like get rid of it and redo it, because it was like a huge like vulnerability to us.
Yeah, that's surprising, because I think that there's some resistance or maybe even some litigation to like limit Huawei's presence in America in general. I could be wrong about that. But like I was just abroad and I see Huawei popping up all over, like, you know, Wi-Fi networks and everything like that. So I think maybe we're keeping them at bay, only for the reason that to an extent we're different from China in that, like, if Huawei is a corporation, but you know, it's probably also the government. Whereas,
of course, right? Because that's like everything in China, right?
Right. I think. I mean, allegedly, but
yeah. I've never been, but that's what everybody says.
And to say that our corporations aren't working with our government is probably a bit naive, but there might be a few more steps between the two.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. But would China ever let the U.S. install their equipment in their country? No. Hell no. Never.
Yeah.
But we just do it because it's can you find that story, Steve, so we can actually see what it actually said? Basically about the FBI investigating Huawei equipment in cell towers.
It also makes me wonder about the South China Sea and Taiwan and all the microchips too. It's never occurred to me, but I wonder if those microchips are the ones that are being used for. I don't know. I'm not an expert.
Yes,
but
this is it. Oh, CNN exclusive. FBI investigation determines Chinese-made Huawei equipment could disrupt U.S. nuclear arsenal communications. Chinese government was offering to spend $100 million to build an ornate Chinese garden at the National Arboretum in Washington, D.C., complete with temples, pavilions, and 70-foot white pagoda. The project thrilled locals officials and hoped it would attract thousands of tourists every year. Anyways, there's more about like If you scroll down, it'll show you. Since 2017, federal officials have investigated Chinese land purchases near critical infrastructure, shut down a high-profile regional consulate believed by the U.S. government to be a hotbed of Chinese spies, and stonewalled that they saw clear efforts to plant listening devices near sensitive military and government facilities. Amongst the most alarming things the FBI uncovered pertains to Chinese-made Huawei equipment atop cell towers near U.S. military bases in the rural Midwest, according to multiple sources familiar with the matter. The FBI determined equipment was capable of capturing and disrupting highly restrictive Defense Department communications, including those used by U.S. Strategic Command, which oversees the country's nuclear weapons. That's crazy.
Yeah. I appreciate this deep dive too, because it's also it gives some context to it that's a little bit more grounded. So it's not like you have to go full conspiracy. It's also, I remember I heard something about Chinese. It wasn't maybe specifically this, but it was like Chinese corporations or government, whatever, buying up like massive plots of land around the country too, and that it's like privately owned and traded, so that's legal and everything. But I imagine that gives them more opportunity. To set up towers.
Yeah, they have been buying tons of land around here.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know if, like, to what extent they're still installing 5G towers enabled by Huawei around here, but I thought there was some kind of resistance to that, but maybe not.
Yeah, I think after this, there was resistance.
Oh, when was that again?
This was. Can you find out when was that article published? Sorry, I missed that part.
That was in July of. Fuck. Let me reopen it. I
thought it was 2020 maybe, or 2022.
2022.
Oh, 2022?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's go to the top.
This is the final war.
Go down.
God, what is up with this silly ad?
There we go. Right there.
July
2022. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess it's ongoing.
Yeah. But like imagine the shoe being on the other foot. Never in a million years would China let us do that.
No way. And yeah, so I wonder if it's like corporate greed driving the or like outweighing the risk, I guess, for our government. But I don't know. That seems sketchy. According to Xi, that's a bad move for us.
I guess that's a win for communism.
Using capitalism to beat capitalism, beating us at our own game. Wow.
Yep. Finding our vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
Okay, so they messaged you about talking about the daughter of the Huawei executive CEO.
Yes, she was a CFO. Yeah,
a CFO. What do they say about that, and why was that relevant to the story?
So this is the beginning of like their brilliant way of weaving modern, like verifiable current events with what could or could not be true in terms of who they are. So pretty much what they said is we have our acknowledgements. They were saying they were somewhat responsible for this. They were somehow involved that, and they were vague about that, but pretty much I started looking at Huawei and started looking at 5G, which by the way, they got in touch with me. One of the first things they said when they mentioned 5G is they said, we're not sure if these are your own beliefs or if you're working for someone. And so it took some digging with them and a little more conversation to understand. But pretty much it must have been in 2019, I was walking around New York with a friend, and like we just did, I saw one of those panels and I was like, oh, I wonder what that is. And then I asked someone installing my Spectrum or something, and I learned that that's the hardware that enables the software of 5G. And so I think I certainly never posted anything on Instagram. I really don't think I texted anything about it. I think I really just had like 2 conversations with a friend walking down the street saying like, oh, look, a 5G tower. And then when the hacker reached out to me, they were like, essentially, we heard you having these conversations and we're not sure if these are your own beliefs or if you're working for someone else. So I was like, did they think that I have some, I'm higher profile or some intelligence or something that, but I literally just had 2 conversations about it. And there were other things about my profile, I guess, that kind of led to them reaching out to me. But they thought I knew something more about this than I did. Okay. So I queued this bombshell up.
Okay.
So this is, I just scrolled down a tiny bit. So this is day 1 of them reaching back out to me again.
Okay. After the pandemic.
Started. In March. Yeah, March 31st.
Oh, this is still March.
This is the same day. I literally just scrolled down like 2 messages. I skipped some more riddles and vagary. So we operate beneath what is considered the mainstream levels. See the document in which operatives were taken out of currency. So they're implying that something in this article is talking about their operatives, or just operatives, I guess you would say, taken out of currency, like arrested, I guess. Especially because, so I've learned, because of Pegasus especially, don't click on links. But I just Googled the words.
Never click on links.
Never. Or you're fucked, because you don't even need to.
Right.
So I Googled this, Harvard University professor and 2 Chinese nationals charged in 3. And that was enough for the Department of Justice article that they sent me here to come up. And I don't know if you want to show that, but pretty much what it talks about.
Are you showing this right now, Steve?
I am.
Okay, cool.
Or I mean, even to show that article.
Can you pull up that article, that justice.gov article? Harvard University professor and 2 Chinese nationals charged. I'm sure you'll find it.
Yeah, it's the first thing that comes up. It's the Department of Justice article, and it talks about this guy, Dr. Charles Lieber.
Okay.
Who, considering the gravity of who he is, what he's done, and what he did in this case, like, I'm so surprised that nobody knows about him. I think there was like maybe a New York Times article, but it kind of skated under the radar. Pretty much I think it was in December of 2019, this guy, who is maybe the world's foremost nanobiologist, right, is arrested in at Boston Logan Airport, fleeing the country by the Department of Justice for lying to the Department of Justice about taking money from the Chinese government.
Whoa.
And specifically the 1,000 Talents program, which is essentially a program they have that is made to attract all of the best talent in all realms from around the world, and use it to advance their, goals. And
Lieber, the W, what does the WUT stand for? The Wuhan University of Technology.
Wuhan, by the way, is where he works in China. This guy.
But he was going from Boston to Wuhan?
I don't know if he was going to Wuhan, but he was fleeing because he knew that he was about to get arrested.
And he worked at that lab in Wuhan?
Yeah, so he worked at MIT and Harvard, and he had Department of Defense contracts, and was secretly working with the Chinese.
Jesus.
And the fucked up. So also in this article, it talks about 2 of his students who were also arrested, I think in San Francisco, fleeing, who turned out to be Chinese agents. So this guy is developing injectable, and you can find this on the MIT website. It's like one of the first things that come up when you search this guy on their archives. Injectable nanotechnology that embeds itself in your nervous system and can monitor and manipulate it. And so the front-facing application is, if you have Alzheimer's, maybe there's a way to like Iron Man, like that, like, I don't know what movie that was, where it's like nanotechnology and it can maybe make your life better, make you, remember things and make people who can't walk again.
Like Neuralink, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
The lowest hanging fruit for Neuralink is to paralyze people, get them to walk again.
Right. Like how altruistic, how wonderful. But why is the Department of Defense interested in this? Why
it's like the iceberg, the little bit that's above the water, and then the giant fucking underbelly.
Yeah. This guy's arrested, and his students were arrested fleeing with the technology, something that they had worked on together. And I won't. Can
you pull up this guy's profile real quick, Steve?
Yeah, go to like the MIT website.
Yeah, go to Charles. What's his last name?
Lieber. Lieber. Or LEI? I don't know.
Yeah. Google just Charles Lieber and see what his bio says. No, this story is everywhere, which is interesting. All right, just click on Wikipedia.
But like, you never heard, like, I haven't talked to anyone who's known about him before.
American chemist, inventor, and nanotechnologist and writer. In 2011, he was named the leading chemist in the world for the decade of 2000 and 2010 by Thomson Reuters, based on the impact of his scientific publications. He is known for his contributions to the synthesis, assembly, and characterization of nanoscale materials and nano devices, the application of nanoelectronic devices in biology and a mentor to numerous leaders in nanoscience. Professor at Harvard University has published over 400 papers in peer-reviewed journals and has edited and contributed to many books in nanoscience. Holy fuck.
Yeah.
What does this say? In 2012, Lieber was awarded the Wolf Prize in Chemistry in a special ceremony held in Israel, in the Israeli Knesset.
Oh, God. Chat's going to go crazy.
Oh, yeah. The chat's going wild right now.
Well, Lieber is a Jewish last name, but also Lebow is.
Is Lebow Jewish?
Yeah, and they'll probably hate
Are you
me
Jewish?
for that, too. Well, I grew up Jewish. My dad's Jewish. My mom converted. So, yeah, I'm one of them, I guess.
You control the world.
If you want to go there. Yeah, convicted of 6 felonies, lying to the Department of Justice.
Wow. Dude, that is crazy.
Yeah. And this
So
all
where
happened.
is he now?
I think he's in jail. I don't know. I mean, I didn't really follow up on that, but and this all happened in December. So like
Of 2020 or 2019.
Of 2019.
2019.
I think. I mean, actually, I don't know what the in December 2021.
December 2021.
Well, no, that's when he was convicted.
Okay, that's when he was convicted of the felonies.
Yeah.
Okay, but when did that DOJ article get published? 2020 January.
January of
okay,
2020.
so right after the pandemic.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, and then convicted 2 years later.
Yeah. So
That makes sense.
yeah, so the world is wondering what's going on. It's December, it's January, and suddenly this guy is fleeing the country. He's working for China and all this stuff.
He's
So
getting paid. How much money did he get paid by China?
I thought it was like hundreds of thousands, but then my buddy on the show was like, no, he saw something that was like millions.
It paid Lieber. The Wuhan University of Technology paid him $50,000 per month, plus living expenses of up to $1 million. So this says approximately 160,000.
Million Chinese yen.
And awarded him more than 1.5 million to establish a research lab in Wuhan. Okay.
In Wuhan. Come on. Wow. In Wuhan.
Bro, this is crazy. So what was this nanotechnology? What did this have to do with Wuhan?
So that's where there's like a ton of dots and they're not connected, but they're right.
By the way, let me
next to
say
each
this.
other.
This episode could very likely be purposely censored, certain words that we're saying by us to keep it safe for YouTube, because this is the kind of episode that YouTube likes to demonetize and suppress. So we might have to blank out a couple words. I don't know if we are yet. We'll analyze that later, but if it's not, there'll be the full unredacted version on Patreon if you want to listen to that. So go ahead.
Sorry, pushing buttons.
No. We're doing what we got to do, man. But just like I don't know how familiar you are with YouTube.
I've seen such things.
It's closer to China than our ideal idea of the United States.
I imagine you'll take that out too.
No, I'll leave that in.
Oh, really? Okay.
But when you talk about, like, I don't know if you're aware, but in the middle of the pandemic, no matter who you were, there was like practicing doctors who went on YouTube to talk about therapies, like alternative therapies for COVID, and YouTube literally deleted their channels.
Yeah.
Because they said it was damaging or harmful to people, because they wanted the vaccine to be the only lane of preventative medicine for to deal with the pandemic, nothing else.
Right.
So if you went on YouTube and said anything about any other sort of treatment or any preventative maintenance or preventative alternatives to the vaccine, they would literally ban your channel or delete your channel or like completely block the videos. It was pretty scary shit. But it's let up since. But still
to an extent. I mean, this is iffy territory, I think, in that realm.
Yeah.
But so maybe you want to believe that the reason that they were doing that was because the government cares about you and your health and wants you to be happy and safe, or some other reason. Could just be monetary gain. You could say that a conspiracy would be that the people in the government who are making those laws and monitoring those streaming platforms are getting subsidized from the companies that are, whatever.
Yes. Very likely.
But then there's this too.
Yeah. Then there's this. You can't ignore. This is undeniable. You can't ignore this.
So I mean, I start doing a deep dive, and by the way, also
me and Max are not suicidal.
Yeah, it's funny how many podcasts I've been on so far where people have had to say that, but yeah, definitely not. So how is this relevant to 5G?
Yes, how is this relevant? How is this relevant to Wuhan and the gain of function research that was going on, and the virus?
Well, the gain of I mean, if you're kind of believing everything that G is saying, the gain of function might have even been smoke and mirrors. Might have even been, look over here, while we're doing this, while Lieber's cooking up this injectable nanotechnology that literally like builds itself. It's like, I mean, people might want to compare it to like graphene or something, but I don't know if that's exactly what it is.
Graphene?
The whole like graphene oxide thing, like the thing. People are saying like, though, that's what's in the vaccine, and it can
I haven't even heard of
has
that.
like a life of its own or something. I don't know, but I don't know if that's true, and I don't know if this is true. But well, actually, I do know that in the stuff that he developed, it's essentially what's the word, like self. There's a word, but it builds itself. It like assimilates molecules from around it and builds itself. So you like put a small bit in, and it like expands. Fact check. I don't know.
Right. We're going back to a text message or a message on Instagram that they sent to you about a particular molecule present in the tests that reacts with the active COVID strain. So what are they trying to say here?
So yeah, then they go on to say there's certain biotech that is compatible with 5G. And this message and future messages, two things. One, this is explaining the type of things they want me to ask the nurses and the people who administer the test to see if they know this. And just when they said it to me initially, I was like, there's no way these people have any idea about any of this. But what they're saying is that, there's a point at which they described to me the creation of COVID and the creation of the vaccine, and that there's like a symbiotic relationship within the two. And so they're saying that there's a certain biotech that is compatible with 5G in COVID. And so when people get tested, it tests like for that or something. And this is the kind of thing where I don't want to get too much into conjecture.
They're saying molecule present in the tests that reacts with present COVID strains. Or are they saying it actually, where are they saying it's in COVID itself, in the actual virus?
Honestly, that's a really good question, because okay, so they've explained it kind of two ways. The main way that I kind of went on thinking about it was that COVID is real, but it was designed in a certain way to spread easily, but not have like a crazy mortality rate or whatever. And that the only function of that was to create enough fear. They're like, people are not going to put computer technologies in their bodies unless they're afraid. And so that COVID was created to like create enough fear.
The idea was that it was created in the lab in Wuhan. The gain of function research was essentially to like figure out more powerful bioweapons, right?
Yeah. And they corroborate that too. And I'm like, well, how is it? And I was like, how did it come to be? And they're essentially just like, someone was injected with COVID and then sent out into the wet market. So it's like this weird mixing of truth, of mainstream and conspiracy. So they're like, it did come from a wet market, but it came not because someone ate a bat or whatever the fuck the story was.
Right.
It was because they shot someone up and then send them out into the wild. So that narrative is more like, okay, COVID itself isn't compatible with anything. It's just a function of creating enough fear that people won't think twice to inject themselves with a new technology that is, allegedly computer technology. But this thing here, I'm hesitant to make conjecture about what exactly they're saying here. There's a molecule present in the tests that reacts with the active COVID strain. Okay, yeah, that's not conspiracy even. That's just saying there's that's how they do the PCR tests, right?
I guess.
I don't know the science behind a PCR test.
A molecule in the I thought the test. So I don't know exactly how the tests work. I assume they're talking about the PCR tests.
Yeah.
So Steve, can you go back to the Google page where it's explaining what the PCR test is. Go to the top of this. No, go back to the top of that.
Oh, the PCR test.
Right here. So Carey Mullis was an American biochemist and recognized for his role in the invention of the polymers chain reaction, also known as PCR technique, that he shared the 1993 Nobel Prize in Chemistry with a guy named Michael Smith. So him and Michael Smith won the Nobel Prize in '93 for this PCR technique, and was also awarded the Japanese prize the same year for. And PCR became the central technique in biochemistry and molecular biology. So go down. So can you click on? Is there a link to like what the PCR test is actually used for, or can you scroll down and find more about the PCR test? Yeah, click that. So the polymers chain reaction PCR is a method widely used to make millions and billions of copies of a specific DNA sample rapidly, allowing scientists to amplify a very small sample of DNA or part of it sufficiently to enable detailed study.
So it's like cloning, right?
But I think the argument against it was that if you amplify like enough of a testing, like a small testing pool to enough of a degree, it'll show like most everything. The idea that like we always have viruses that are trying to get into us and we're most of the time fighting them off. If I recall, that was the argument against the accuracy of PCR tests. That it was like if you blow up a tiny testing sample to enough of a degree, you could find the bubonic plague in somebody or something,
right,
so to speak.
Right.
But as it relates to this, I'm not so sure because they also I just scrolled to another passage where they explain the connection of 5G again from their perspective,
right,
and COVID and kind of the
click on COVID-19 testing. Involves analyzing samples to assess the current or past presence of SARS-CoV-2, the virus that cases COVID-19 and is responsible for the COVID-19 pandemic. The two main types of tests detected either presence of the virus or antibodies produced in response to the infection. Okay, right. There was a basically they take the swab of your saliva and they could detect whether your body was creating the antibodies to protect yourself against it. What was the other one? So, the two main types of tests to detect the presence of, so there was just two tests to detect antibodies. Molecular tests for the viral presence through its molecular component are used to diagnose individual cases and allow the public health authorities to trace and contain the outbreak. Antibody tests, serology, immunoassay, instead show whether someone had the disease. They are less useful in diagnosis of current infections because antibodies may not develop for weeks after infection, right, and is used to assess disease prevalence, which aids in the estimation of the infection fatality rates. Got it. So in this test, I'm guessing they're talking about there was a molecule. I don't understand. Like,
yeah, I don't. So I pulled up another section. I don't know if we want to look at that first. Because I don't know.
5G is capable of transmitting data at an incalculable pace. If there is a chemical agent within human cells, then all bodily functions can be measured seamlessly. Thoughts can be entered. It's the next phase. There had to be a reason for humans to give up their bodies to these forces. If they fear the virus, they will allow the computer technologies to be placed in their bodies.
And then the next part, they were answering a different question that I asked about.
Right.
They.
Governments. Okay. You're asking who is they? You said, and they say not so organized.
Just fun diatribe here. I not at this point, I asked them who they are because everyone's always saying they, and they describe it really well. They say they are like the mafia in that there's many different families, and sometimes they work together, sometimes they work separately, sometimes they work against each other, but they're all always working to their own, with their own benefit in mind. And sometimes it aligns with each other and sometimes it doesn't. And even if you were to kill all of the heads of every family in the mafia still exists. And so they're in like a grounded perspective, they're essentially saying it's not so simple that there's one room, the Illuminati, where everybody's just cooking up plans for the world. They're like, there's just all of these people whose power has like metastasized to such a degree that they're fighting for their own control and their own power, and sometimes they're aligned and sometimes they aren't, but that it's also like this spiritual thing, that it's like this evil that exists in man has been around forever and you can never kill it. It's like a part of humanity. It's like a part of who we are. And I was talking to someone about it the other day where I was like, you don't know who you would be if you had $1 trillion.
Right.
You know, like you don't know what it's like to have that much power. So,
Right.
so it's something in us, you know, in humanity. It's like they are you, you know, you have to kind of check yourself for like your own desire for control and power, you know, but these people just actually have it. But it's not one group. It's not the Illuminati, you know, it's corporations and bankers and, you know, governments and whatever.
Right. People who we probably don't know the names of.
Yeah. And then people beyond that. I mean, you know, the Club of Rome one is a fun one to dive down. There's
Which one?
There's like some people are like the people who are like Rome was never destroyed. It just like changed forces.
Yeah.
And they cite like the eagle, the two-winged eagle. That symbol has like spanned from, you know, ancient Mesopotamia to Rome to you know, the UK to the US and Nazi Germany, and that like that symbol alludes to the fact that there's been this like undercurrent of like power transferred over thousands of years, and it's a fun rabbit hole. I don't know the validity of it, but
Interesting.
but this is the final war. Whoever controls 5G controls data and human activity. The human mind is within reach, and I say so. Our goal is to take control of 5G and use it for good or destroy it, to prevent it from being used for the ultimate evil.